Ben McKee, West Rucker of Go Vols 24/7 here at Hawkins Field in the Music City over on West End, where Tennessee just pulled off a nice come-from-behind victory, scored 5 runs in the 8th inning after entering the inning trailing by 1. And Billy Amick, who had a nice night at the plate, I believe he finished with 3 hits. He leads off the inning with a single the opposite way, very nice at bat. And then Kavars Tears, who has had many great at-bats this season, has an 0-1 fastball up and in that backs him off the plate, calls timeout, gets back in the box, a breaking ball that did not break, up around the head again, very frustrated, and he smokes a 2-run homer the opposite way over Vandy's version of the Green Monster, and that proved to be the difference and sparked a 5-run inning. Hunter Ensley comes up with an RBI single after Dylan Dreiling triples. The Vandy center fielder missed it. Cannon Peebles gets going. We can talk about that in a minute, but Kavars Tears, that home run was the difference.
Yeah, and it's been a couple of weeks since he'd left the yard. He had the injury a little bit there and wasn't quite 100%, but came back and bounced back. And I tell you, that's an incredibly mature at bat. I mean, he's a third-year sophomore, draft-eligible sophomore, but still not a ton of starting experience really until getting into this year. But it's the second year in a row against Vandy that he's just had an absolutely huge at bat. I mean, what was it? This exact series Friday night, just a few hours to the east. A huge situation late in the game again. And, this Tennessee team, the maturity, like the way that they can look so volatile at times and so emotional and then just dig right back in and get back to the task at hand, that's a really hard thing to do. Like, it's sometimes you think like, oh, they're just not in the right headspace, like they've lost it, they've lost the plot. No, they fight back. Just about all the time they fight back, and that was a really big win tonight, Ben.
It absolutely was, and we have plenty of pitching to discuss, but want to stick with the offense while we're there. Several guys had big nights, and most of it were the guys that we've already talked about. Dylan Dreiling, that triple. He had two-out RBI hits early in the game. Christian Moore sets the tone pretty quickly, leading off the weekend with a home run the opposite way into right field. And then a couple of batters later, Dylan Dreiling hits an RBI double after Kavars Tears worked a 2-out walk. And then Dreiling, I believe in the 3rd inning, had an RBI single, blooped it in with 2 outs once again. So Dreiling had a big 3-hit night. Billy Amick had a couple of hits, as we mentioned. Tears was big time. Simo had a big hit. It was, at times, it was quiet, but over the course of the game in which baseball is played, it was a very nice, efficient night against a really good starter in Brock Cunningham, who had his good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he had his good stuff, and he was dialed in. For the second week in a row, Tennessee's on the road playing against a team that is sort of fighting potentially for what's going to happen with that team in the postseason. And when you have a lot of talent, you got some big arms, and you're playing for a lot, and those arms get going, like, it's tough, man. Like, these guys do things that are not really normal. And it's almost like you start seeing it all the time and you start thinking it's normal. No, it's not. Like, they're 2-strike at bats. Amick, the way that he chops it down when he needs to get it done. He might not be able to tell you how he did it, but by God, he does it. He's just one of those guys. It's unbelievable. And Dreiling, had some swings tonight that didn't look good, but then, boom, right back with big swings. And the way that they battle with 2 strikes, with 2 outs, they go on these basketball runs. Like, that's tough, man. I mean, this wasn't quite a home field advantage for Vandy. It was close to that. Almost 50-50, it felt like at times with the noise, but you're away from home. The other team's in their dugout. They get going. It snowballs there in the 6th. You get one call that borderline, you didn't get it, and then things snowball. Bounce back, man. That's tough.
Yeah, we'll start with the 6th inning when talking about pitching. Both of Tennessee's pitchers, they only used 2 tonight, Chris Stamos and A.J. Causey, and both of them looked really good. Not a perfect performance by either, but overall really solid outings. We'll start with Causey. That 6th inning that you mentioned, Vandy scores 3 to take the lead, and it kind of snowballed after a 1-2 count. According to the TrackMan, which is the science of it, it was technically a ball just off the plate.
It's usually called.
Usually called, but it is what it is. And Tennessee did not regroup after that very well. Single, double, single for 3 runs. But kudos to Causey for, after that inning, Tony V sticks with him, and Causey rolls the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple reasons for that. One is that you have trust for A.J. Causey, but also, there's just not, until Russell comes back, there's not a lot of true depth. Like, you think of 9, 10, 11, 12 guys just going out. They don't really kind of have that right now. Very few teams do, and they're not one of them. So they kind of have to manage things. And Vitello had to make some of those calls again tonight, with who do you stick with, who do you not, who do you pinch hit, who do you not. By the results, I mean, got a lot of them right. Causey goes out there, keeps his pitch count low enough to stay in the game. And other than that one inning, they didn't bother him. And they were trying. Like, they were, all night long, that you could tell their scouting report was to get up and those front door sliders that he throws 3 or 4 guys for Vandy tried to lean into that, which is smart baseball. I've seen teams do that my whole life. Like you try to.
But
you try to get on base.
I get that, but a 3-hole hitter for an SEC power.
That was he's a 3-hole hitter hitting 240 or 250, so it's a little different. But yeah, I mean, it's listen.
I thought it was funny. That's my point.
It is. You do what you have to do to try to win, and I think they did that. But because he kept throwing that pitch and he kept getting that strike call, and it didn't work for him. And that's say what you want, it's a well-coached team over there. That guy's got, look at the banners behind us. Like that dude's for real. And to beat that team 8 straight times, to make the decisions they've made to do that, big stuff, man. Causey, man, what a huge addition he's been. You talk about this is a guy who had an ERA of more than 5 at Jacksonville State last season, Ben. It's wild. It's just, but he's a hell of a pitcher.
Yeah, Stamos is too. Stamos also had a ballooned ERA at Cal, and he was, again, not perfect tonight. Gave up the solo homer the opposite way, but other than that, I mean, he did work in the trouble, which is why I'm bringing him up. But a leadoff walk to start the inning, and then a single puts runners on the corners, and then he turns into Houdini, strikes out back-to-back guys, and gets a ground ball to Blake Burke. Stamos continues to be really good opening for Causey.
Yeah, after those first 2 batters, I don't really bet. I'm not ethically against it. I just don't really do it. But if I had been a betting person, I would not have bet on him getting out of that first inning. Like I would guess that Causey was back there stretching, getting hot. We can't really see the bullpen exactly where we are. It's close, but the way that he bounced back from that's big. And you think about it, it's baseball is a game of inches, and these series are games of inches and seconds and minutes. And for him to be able to stay out there for a couple more innings meant Causey had enough juice to finish that game, meant that Tennessee only had to use 2 pitchers, while Vandy used 5 or 6 tonight. All those things matter. Like when we see these games in series where Tennessee's scoring 15, 16 runs at times, it's because of those little things. Like they are holding down the opponent enough and keeping enough arms fresh to where at the end of it they can just pour it on you. But it starts with things like we saw tonight.
It absolutely does. This team continues to find ways to win, which is, I think, the best thing that you can say about a team, on top of the toughness and the resiliency and the adversity that we've seen them time and time again this season be able to fight through. And sounds like help also may be on the way. A.J. Russell getting closer and closer. I was on active roster watch today. He ultimately was not on the active roster for this weekend. But from my understanding, he's going to throw 2 live hitters at some point this weekend, which is a great sign. And I think you'll eventually see him at some point before they go to Hoover. And Tennessee fans in attendance will see you and I back here tomorrow afternoon for a 3 p.m. Eastern start when Tennessee goes for a series win over Vanderbilt.
I was just going to say one quick thing. I mean, Tennessee might get A.J. Russell back, and Vitello's comment about that was eye-raising. When you think about the arms they've had here, he said, I don't know, we've had a guy quite like him. That's an eye-raiser. And the other thing was, welcome back again, Cannon Peebles. That was huge late in the game. I mean, to get him going, that, like Vitello said, that's like a trade deadline acquisition. If you can get this guy hot, that's a huge bat, man. People talk about him as a potential first rounder next season, Ben. Like, he's got a lot of talent, and if he gets his head on straight, look out.
Absolutely. Wes and I will be back tomorrow afternoon as Tennessee goes for another series win over Vanderbilt at 3 p.m. Eastern on the SEC Network with Chris Burke and Tom Hart on the call. I know Tennessee fans will appreciate that after the last couple of weeks. And we've got plenty of Tennessee baseball coverage up at the site at GoVols247.com. He's Wes Rucker. I'm Ben McKee.